Hey everybody, it's George the Tech, and this is one of those fun opportunities. We don't get to do this that often, but when we finish a studio design project, it's really fun to talk to the owner and the voice actor who uses that studio.
George the Tech.
They're like snowflakes, right? They're all unique. And here today to talk about his project is my wonderful client, Christopher Gooley. How you doing, Christopher?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm great. I really appreciate your time this morning.
Oh, thank you.
So tell me, first of all, what made your project a little bit more challenging than maybe anticipated? The situation was kind of unique. You weren't starting from zero. You already had a booth. What was the goal, and why did we have to redo your booth? What was the goal in mind? What were we trying to accomplish?
My first booth, it was great for a starter booth. And I feel like that I almost kind of jumped the gun a bit. Meaning I really had no knowledge of what was going on. So the gentleman who built it for me built a great starter booth for me. Mind you, a year later, it started falling apart. I don't want to say really bad, but tables were falling out. The inside stuff was coming apart. So it ended up turning into just a closet in this room because it was unusable. So I was doing all my auditions right here from my standing desk from just this room. So I needed to completely gut it and just start brand new and fresh.
So when we approached this, was it did you gut out the interior, or did you actually go down to scratch, remove the whole thing and start over?
So Paulie, the guy who built it for me under your direction, he pretty much ripped it apart, and the reason he had to rip it apart was because of the wood and everything that was underneath that was built was completely, I don't know the word, but basically wood that should have been used outside and not inside. So when he pulled everything apart, there was moisture all over the wood.
Gotcha.
And he's like, this is not good. You shouldn't be breathing this kind of stuff in. And if you're going into the booth to record with no air, you're breathing this stuff in, you're pretty much doing damage to your inside.
Yeah. Paulie was by the way, giving props to where props are due. Paulie was awesome from my end to deal with. Great communication.
Yeah.
Just all the way around. If you're so lucky to get someone that's able and willing to work on such a weird little project, right? With strange requirements, very confined workspace,
right?
And also work with me in a collaborative fashion, the way that he did. Big time props to Paulie. We'll make sure his information is somewhere on the video, maybe in the description, so you guys need someone to work on your studio in the Yonkers, Greater White Plains area. You've got a resource, because he was great, right? I mean,
it was the first time he was doing this, so he literally said to me, he's like, I don't know what I'm doing now. Let's just see what happened.
Well, honestly, sometimes the best person for the job is that person. It's the person who's not done one before, but they actually are enthusiastic to try something new. Mm-hmm. They want to. It's an interesting outside of the usual project for them. Yeah. They're up for the challenge and they want to learn something. So that's what I look. I mean, I look for that in a contractor or builder more than I want. Sometimes more than experience, or because that's again, they're going to try to solve problems and they want to achieve a good and finished product. So he did that. So tell us about the size restrictions that you had to work with. Why it was a little bit challenging to fit your booth in there.
So when my wife and I first bought this house during the pandemic, we were kind of looking around at the rooms because she knew I wanted a voiceover booth. And she said to me, you know what? The only room I'm going to give you is this tiny room that was a bedroom before we moved in. The problem with this is we have the pull down for the attic right here. And then I also have a standing table. So I didn't have much square footage. I didn't have much room to put a booth in here. But my wife was very like, this is the room. I mean, you could put it in the other rooms, but it has to be in this room, which is so small.
Yeah, so we had to squeeze your booth in to a width of space that's, I think the outside width is 2 feet, 2.5 feet?
Yeah, it's about 2 feet, yeah.
On the outside.
Yeah. And then
So
on
the inside is a lot smaller than that.
You know,
Yeah.
when Paulie like had the structure up, and I was recovering from surgery, so I really couldn't like come up here to see what was happening. But when
That's
I think I have a picture on my Instagram where I came up here and I was just like, Paulie, is this? And he's like, I'm just going based off of what, and I was like, I trust both of you. And then I just went back downstairs.
Oh boy, yeah, that took a lot of trust. I honestly, when the space was finished and drywalled in, and I saw the size, I was like, this is gonna be challenging, right? Yeah. But honestly, the part that's making it tenable for you is that you're basically standing in the doorway.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we have a wall that's so many inches thick, and then where the door is going to be inset towards the outside of the wall, right? So now you get this extra 4 or 5 inches, and that's critical now because he has the room to stand in there. Otherwise, you'd have to stand like kind of diagonal.
It's kind of like, yeah.
It's pretty tight. The only booth I've done that's that tight in terms of square footage, and you're in good company here, is Lori Allen. I don't know if you know Lori.
You told me, yeah. I remember you mentioned that.
She had a very small booth. I would close the door, and it would just like this against my shoulders, right? Now, this is where things get really interesting. Can you make a really, really small, or just a weird, like it's not tiny in length, and it's not tiny in height. You've got a decent amount of room above you, right?
Room above me, room in front of me. So my wife and I, we did like a do-it-yourself standing desk in there, and I managed to have 2 size chairs that actually fit in there so I could still sit down and be comfortable.
So you change out the chair depending on what you're doing?
Yeah. If I have the standing desk a little bit higher, like if I want to stand up, I have a chair that's pretty much that I could just sit down. But if I want to go all the way down and just sit down towards the floor, so I have 2 different height chairs.
That made it even more interesting because you wanted to have varying heights, which is, I think, a really smart idea, design. I highly recommend an adjustable height desk. Yeah. You don't want something mounted to the wall permanently because chances are it's not the height you want it to be all the time. Yeah. And having that versatility of standing and sitting, I happen to enjoy that very much. If you looked at my desk, you wouldn't think it could possibly move. It's just one humongous, looks like a door. It's huge, and it has a hutch on top, and it is covered in stuff, but it's an electric lift desk, so that's I can set the height. It's wonderful, and it just makes it so much easier to work in different situations. You might be doing something really long, and you might want to sit up or stand down. In fact, even midway through my show, when I do VOBS now, my show, I will sit down for the first hour segment, and then I will stand up for the second hour sometimes, It's good to be able to move around.
Right.
So what equipment are you using in your booth?
So I have my Newman 102, which I ended up getting during the pandemic. I have my laptop, which is right in front of me. I have an iPad holder for my scripts. I have a Brio webcam that I don't really need because I have my laptop, but I find that the picture is a lot more clearer. So I'll sit it on top of my iPad and have it looking down at me, or I'll just put it on my laptop. I have the microphone holder, and then I also hardwire my internet into the booth because Paulie built an extension right into, so it goes from this wall directly into the booth, so I could just
Don't forget to do that, folks. Really important, especially because you're now building multiple layers of material. The walls are thicker. The Wi-Fi inside there is going to be dramatically affected. It's going to be a lot worse than it would otherwise be. So that makes the Ethernet in your booth even more important. Yeah, absolutely. What kind of computer are you using in there to be quiet enough?
Mac. I have a MacBook Pro.
Yeah.
I don't hear anything. There's no fans in the computer. I don't hear anything from my iPad. And then Paulie, I can't show it to you now, but I have a system underneath the standing desk that just pushes fresh air into it. But when I turn it on outside the booth, it's like, oh my God, it's very loud. But then once I'm in here, you don't hear a peep. And it's just like,
That's
oh my
impressive.
God, it's so fresh.
That is another thing that is often off. I love looking at people's designs. People are very proud of their booths and they post them online all the time. And my number one question is usually, what are you doing for ventilation? Because it's not attended to very well.
Yeah. I used to, so in my first booth, I think I told you this, I ended up getting stuck inside my booth and I didn't have any air coming in. So I was like stuck in the booth for like 10 minutes.
And then it gets worse because now you're hyperventilating and panicking and you're pumping.
It's already
more
small
carbon
enough as it is.
Yeah. So it's great that you have fresh air. It's even more critical the smaller the room is.
Yeah.
As you shrink the room and the volume of the room is smaller, what's happening is your own carbon dioxide, your breath. It's not so much that you run out of oxygen, it's that you expel carbon dioxide into the environment. That's what we think of when we think of, boy, the room is stuffy, it's stale.
Yeah.
It's basically you're slowly poisoning yourself with carbon dioxide over time, right? So that's why I mean, a lot of people just do quick auditions, fine, open the door, right? But if you do directed sessions or long projects, it's going to be inefficient to have fresh air is so important. So, why did you, how and why did you end up working with me with all the resources online, YouTube and everything? How did you end up working with me and my team and Jim Edgar too?
Yeah, Jim.
We'll talk about Jim.
We'll talk about Jim. He's amazing. I told my wife that when I got my first booth, and it was, like I said, it was good for the moment. But if I wanted to redo it, I needed the best of the best. I wanted to make sure that it was done right, done correctly. Did not want to redo. I did not want to go through what I went through already.
You had a false start already.
Yeah.
You've tried that. Yeah.
So I was doing my homework. I was doing my research. There's a Facebook group, Voiceover, I think it's Voiceover Builders, that I saw your name pop up here and there. Your name populated from different teachers that I studied with. So I knew exactly you were the man that I was going to go to for this project.
That's good. Yeah. So I guess that's a message to me and anybody else who has to market themselves. You need to be, people don't always recommend you from a single recommendation source. It's usually from multiple places, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I do so much social media, because that really helps from a marketing perspective.
Right.
But anyway, that's great. I'm glad you were able to find me and we were able to work together. Let me ask you this. Let's talk about Jim.
Oh, Jim.
So,
Jim.
Jim Edgar is obviously, he's got his own thing going. It's called Ask Jim VO, I think it is.
I think so, yeah.
He's got he has his own forum on Facebook. He's a huge font of information, knowledge, and he's super great guy, right? Amazingly, he opted earlier this year to come and work as another George the Tech team member. Shocked me. I was like, you got a thing, but he decided he would like to work with us. So So that was awesome because I realized that with the schedule I was having on my lap and the certain things that you needed some extra training with, I thought, you know what? The guy for this is probably Jim.
Yeah.
I think he would be a really awesome person to work with you on this. So was I right? Was he a helpful guy?
Oh my! It was more. I know. What I said in my email to you is that he really is a saint.
Yeah.
I come from a theater and an on-camera background, so Theo, I kind of dived in during grad school and the pandemic. I really started getting into it, but I would just use GarageBand. I think I'm doing it right. I guess, but he
you're self-taught.
Yeah, he nitty gritty. This is what you need to do. This why you need to do it, and I was just blown away by oh my god, the amount of auditions that I probably flopped up, and I could have done better. Yeah.
Yeah. So he was helpful. I'm glad to hear
helpful.
That. I mean, you had questions for me, and I thought, you know what, with the range of questions that you had, I was like, we could really do a more in-depth training just on some helpful basic workflow technique and et cetera issues that will make your life better. So that was the goal there. So I'm glad that Jim worked out with you there. And I just, I knew Jim's reputation, but I think you're one of the first people that he worked with in our client base, and to see that reaction and the response was really validating. That's
great.
So
that's
thanks,
great.
Jim. If there was anything you could do differently if you started all over again, we know that you don't get an option of what room in the house it is. We know that. Is there anything you would do differently, or are you really happy with the result?
I am so happy with the result. The only thing I would probably do differently would be if I swapped this room, their workout room, which is just 2 doors down because it's a little bit bigger. But I really like this room. Natural light. I do my self-tape auditions in here. This is like my audition room sanctuary now. And
what do you use for your backdrop? Where do you stand when you're doing the self-tapes?
So mind you, that's a reason why my wife and I painted this.
Yeah, you did a neutral, really neutral gray tone. It's one of the colors on. I think
it's one of the
color. That's about it. Yeah.
We were when we were living in Queens before we moved here. I have a backdrop, and it was just such a pain in the butt to put it up, take it down. So my wife and I, we can close the blinds here or use the natural light. We have some overhead light, and we were like, you know what? Let's just paint this. And this is my natural, and it worked out perfectly.
That's awesome. Well, I got to tell you, it's really cool to see the end result. Throughout this video, you guys have seen some great shots of the way the booth's arranged inside. The really beautifully made, custom-made acoustical panels that Paulie built those, right? Did he make those?
The panels?
Or some of those were built elsewhere?
They were built. I think I forgot the name. Oh my god, I'm like blanking on the name of the company.
Was it ATS?
Yes.
It wasn't ATS. It was ATS?
I think it was ATS out of Chicago. Or one of them, someplace in the middle of the country. Yeah.
Yeah, ATS, I believe that's the one I usually recommend, but I couldn't remember.
Perfect.
But yeah, everything is custom made to fit exactly the space, and all the acoustical paneling is optimized to give you the best possible treatment around the microphone where it's really, really critical, right?
Sounds great.
That came out real well. So you guys have seen that in the video. And, if you have any questions, reach out, let us know. Or if somebody had a question for you and just wanted to chat, would you be willing to chat with anybody?
Yeah, feel free. Awesome. I already have friends who reach out to me and they want to know the process of how it went.
Yeah, that's great to know. Great. Well, I'll make sure that information's available to everybody. And if you need help with your own studio, we have a service on the website. It's right there on the top menu bar. It's about home studio design and construction. And I will work with you and your contractor to make sure that we answer all the little detailed questions, and they have a good proposal plan design to work from. And just, we will try to eliminate as much guesswork as possible for you. So we're there for you when you need it. So thanks a lot. Thanks for your time, Christopher.
Thank you so much. I appreciate everything.
Enjoy
honestly,
the changing leaves that you guys get to look at out there.
Thank you.
All right.